All right, guys, welcome back. As you can see, we already started digging into this front end here. We got it out. We got the forks off.
Okay, so let's go back to where it was though.
Yeah, so before...
These were the fork stops, sponges.
Yeah, this is
so
what the fork stops were.
Imagine these were here.
It's on the
forks had the most insane turn, which would go all the way to here. So the sponges never even touched anything, but he put the sponges on the forks right here like that was going to do something. So he used a ton of red Loctite all over everything, which wasn't very fun to get off, but he wanted to make sure that nothing ever came off. So we broke the forks off, got everything broken down. One of the legs over there, Johnny, show him that one.
Yeah, so this is one of the legs right here. These aren't Harley legs, are they?
I don't know what the hell they are.
No, yeah, they're just, we don't really know, but these...
They're not 30, I originally thought they were 35 millimeter, they're like 32 millimeter.
Yeah, so they're...
So there's some aftermarket leg, I don't know.
No idea.
No idea.
But this is one of the legs, and you can't really see it, but...
That one moves.
This one moves, which is odd because the other one is frozen shut. So what we're trying to do now is figure out a way to unstick the cartridge, because right now it's solid as a rock. It will not move. We've tried it. We've tried hitting it with a hammer. We've tried, putting body weight on it, nothing.
So and taking them off, I realized that one actually worked, but this one, because it was frozen, compressed, that's why the front end was actually about 2 inches shorter than it should be. So the front end will be about 2 inches longer, but because this one was frozen short, the other one was stayed short too. So we're just going to take this.
Yeah, so we're draining the fluid right now. We took the drain out. So it does have fluid in it, but...
Now they had fluid in them.
Yeah, but it's absolutely pointless because it's stuck.
Yeah, but we're going to have to definitely take them apart to get this one unstuck. So it's at least, it's good it's got fluid in it, which is, I guess, a good sign.
Yeah, so we're going to drain the fluid, and then we're going to try and figure out a way to unstick these.
We were talking about these forks on the chopper here. Now, they are not 35 millimeter, like we said. They're a 33.4 millimeter, which were really early Sportster, early Shovelhead, K model. All these use these really thin forks, and I think it's a really good look for what we got going on with this chopper, because that really thin front end, the really thin bars. Here you can see we took the forks off. We looked at that last time. So again, we just, I had to think about it for a minute. What the heck were 33.4 millimeter forks? They were super early Shovelhead. Again, our K model, early Sportster. You can see we took them off right here. We were gonna actually fix the fork stops, and we were gonna figure out what was going on with these forks. Now, the one compressed and the one didn't. This was the one that does work right here. And I drained it out earlier, so that's why it's on the vise right here. We drained it, drained all the fluid, but you can see this top right here. This is that really strange fork stop. Threads right in there. So that needs this tool right here. It's got the two corresponding male studs to the female holes. I had to loosen it up, and because again, Mr. Red Loctite over here, the person who had it before me put red Loctite on this. So what we're doing here, we're going to unscrew that. Again, I broke it earlier, heated it up, had to put a little impact on it to get it to loosen. And we're going to get this to come out. And that's threaded all the way in there. And this is not really under that much tension, but what we're going to do, I'm going to be able to take this off and show you. See, we're almost all the way out. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to show you what it looks like inside. We're going to have a fork spacer. And then we're going to have the actual fork springs, and I'm going to seal off the bottom again, make sure it's nice and tight. I'm going to add the correct amount of fluid. When I drained this guy, he had about 4 ounces of fluid in this fork tube, and when I read through all the books, we probably should have about 6.5 ounces. I'm probably going to go with a little heavier weight than they typically say, just because I think with these longer forks, and it being as thin as they are, I think they recommend B, which is, I think, about 10 to 15. So, or E is a little heavier, could be up to 25. So I'm going to stick around E, like maybe a 25 weight in there. And again, I'm going to stick the correct amount in there. Let's see if we can get this little turning out. So after we get this one out, we're going to take a look down in there, make sure everything's okay on this fork. And then we're going to redo the bottom. Then we're going to put fluid in it. We're going to clean it up. Then we're going to redo the other one. The other one's more apart. Like I'll show you that one. And then I'll have to go into what we did on that one. That one, the reason why it was frozen was, crazy enough, the bottom bushing was creating too much interference on the fork leg. So what happened was it went all the way to the bottom, bottomed out, and just got stuck. So I had to take it up to the one and only Vince up in San Bruno, the guru, the man who knows everything about everything. And he actually honed it out for me. And we honed out that bushing a little bit to get it better. This thing is almost out. Feels like it's right there. He actually made this tool, see? He modified this end here, welded a 3/8 on there, because it has a T from the factory. It's got a little T that's going to go through there. You see that hole? And then as soon as you start twisting it, that little metal T handle, no matter how strong it is going to bend. There we go. So here's our little plug right here. You can see on that, there's the little female ends. And then you can see the back side, the little pinholes to get through there. But those are the female ends, which corresponds to the tool. And now we're going to look down in here. Here's our fork spring. Actually, our spacer. Here's our spacer right here. When they extended the front end, they put this spacer in. Probably not stock, but they extended it out. And then right down in there is going to be a spring, which I can't get a light in there, but trust me, it's down in there. So there's our spacer. Not under that much tension. If you have taken apart a 41 millimeter or 39 millimeter, you know, sometimes they're under super amount of tension. This one's not really, because you got that long threaded run right there, which this threads into, so you can see that's threaded right there. That long threaded run, which is going to increase it to get it all the way down there to lock in. So that's how it looks when you first take it apart. Now this one out here, I'm going to show you. Here's what we ran into. Here's our fork tube again. I just put the end in it to hold it, but you can see right down here, right at the end, someone tried to actually sand down a little bit of that, because they must have discovered that the bushing right in here, that right there, you can see, was a little too tight. And when that's too tight, this spot right here, this is too tight, it was binding right here on the fork. So what happened was it compressed all the way down, drove it about up to there, which is just past where they like sanded it down a little bit, drove it up to there, and just basically bottomed it out, and it's stuck. So we fixed that. We went ahead and honed this out on Vince's hone, and great finish right in there. It looks really good. And then we're going to reassemble this. We're going to put some new oil in there. We're going to get these things actually working. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go right here to these drain tubes. I'm going to take, the drain plug right there. That's just a little, see, that's a little bolt right there. I'm going to take the drain bolt out. I'm going to put actually copper crush washer in there, which is, he's just got a regular washer in there, which kind of sucks to make a seal. But I'm going to put a copper crush washer in there and get that all figured out, get it all buttoned up, cleaned up, and then I will show you when I'm done. But it's just super simple. Just filling it with fork oil, bolting everything together back the way it was. No one needs to see a video about that, but I'll show you when it's all done. And then after that, we're going to tackle this mess right here. Like we talked about probably a video or two ago, we got our triple tree with no fork stops. So we got the, and by the way, way too tight. The guy over tightened it. I think in his thought process was probably really simple as well. I don't have fork stops, so I want to make my forks really tight. And most likely we're going to run into red Loctite there, which we ran into it there. Thank you very much. We're going to run into red Loctite here. We're going to run into red Loctite everywhere, which you shouldn't be using on this, but they did. So we're going to try to install that stainless steel fork stop, which is going to sit under this, right here under the bearing plate. Bearing is going to go on top, and then it's going to create a fork stop right there. I'll show it to you. Let's see, where is it? There it is. So it looks like this, super simple. It's going to be a plate like this. It's going to sit right under there. These are actually for 39 millimeter, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure we can use it. If not, we're going to modify it. And then as that turns, that fork stop's going to hit there, or their fork stop's going to hit there. And if I just set it up kind of here, where you can see the center, That should correspond exactly where it is. And that what we're going to do is that's going to be stuck onto that bottom triple tree. We're going to drill some holes right here. And then we're going to install some roll pins, just hammer them in there so it's nice and flush. Then that bearing is going to sit right on top of that. And that little space right there, this thickness, which is probably about 1/4 of an inch, really won't matter because there is adjustability on that triple tree. It doesn't matter that it's going to, you know, be a little that much further down. We'll be able to adjust it on the forks. It shouldn't be an issue. So I'll pick that up in a minute, but we're going to get those fork tubes redone, and then we'll pick it up from there. All right. That is it for now, but we'll definitely be back. We'll get this thing rolling. It'd be nice to have front forks, right? And then after that, we'll go over the front wheel right here. I discovered an amazing thing about this, which not a huge fan of, but this is going to be interesting to show. So here was my thought. I was like, oh, fantastic. This is great. We got our front brake right here, right? We're going to put our front forks on there. We're going to have brakes. We're going to just have a cable brake, real simple. You know, nice drum brake. When I pulled it apart, I discovered nothing. So never intended to have front brakes. We got no brake shoes. We got no springs. We have nothing. So I'm actually going to probably eliminate this piece right here. And I'm probably going to take that arm off too. So we're going to run it, have it look like it has no brakes because it doesn't have front brakes. And I don't want it to look like we just forgot to attach them. You know, if we're going to be intentional about it, we'll be intentional about it. We're going to take this brake arm off. We're going to take this off. And then we're going to go from there because I really don't feel like retrofitting brake shoes on it. I'll just run it with no front brakes. I've done it before. Ridden choppers with no front brakes. You just gotta be aware that all you have is a rear brake. So that's what we'll do next. That'll be a couple videos from now. But right now, we'll concentrate on the fork tubes. Let's see, what do we have to do today? We got to get this triple tree off because we're going to put in that fork stop, the one I showed you the other day. This one right there. Right there, that's the one we're going to do. So we got to get all this loosened up. And Mr. Red Loctite here, he Loctited everything to make sure that we couldn't get anything off. But we're going to break all those exceptionally tight bolts that he over-tightened everything. We're going to take the bars off. We are going to take these risers off, clean those, get those cleaned up. We're going to take this triple tree off. We're going to get the bearings out. It's way too tight. As I turn it, you can see it barely turns. Get this headlight off, all this bracket. Get the brackets off. Figure that out, clean all that up. I'm going to set this camera up here. And then we're just going to go ahead and get that done. So, yeah, let's get going. Let's get this thing fixed. All right, we're back. 73 Shovelhead, period correct chopper. Last we left off, I was attempting to take the triple trees off, and the triple trees came off fine, except for the handlebars. I got 3 of these bolts. You can see here, so here's the riser situation, which we love these tall, skinny risers, super cool, right? Except one of the bolts, our gentleman here, Mr. Red Loctite himself, flooded the inside of every bolt with red Loctite to the point where there's no way that thing was coming out. I heated it, I tried to get it out and ended up stripping the head. I had to actually drill it out, and I think one of the videos shows me struggling for about 10 minutes to get that thing out. I just turned the video off after a while. These are those crappy black Allen bolts. Do never use these. I hate them. They're super weak. I don't even know what grade are those, Johnny?
0.
Yeah, like grade 5, grade 4. They're crap. So we are going to go with the standard grade 8 Harley bolts. Harley Allens, sorry, Allen. These are just a normal Harley. So we're going to go with those. That's a triple tree. So we got that all sorted out. We got the bolt out of there, obviously. So I had to end up drilling the head, basically drilling the head off, and then just the stud stuck out. Again, that took about another 10 minutes of heat and pressure, and we got it out. So that's done. That's the top that's the top of the tree. Here's the nut that goes into the top right here, which is a really cool kind of pyramid stepped piece. Looks cool. Looks like some kind of Mayan pyramid there. We like that. That's going to go right in here. Here's the top of our triple trees. We'll put those in. Now here's the fork stop I was telling you about, and I showed it to you in a video just as it was. So the idea is that we remove the dust cover off the bottom, remove the bearing, which by the way was a pain in the ass because again, stuck on with red Loctite, but we got it off finally. And then you slide this over, and they give you all these multiple holes. You only have to put 4 pins in here. Here's the pins. You put these solid roll pins. They're not roll pins, they're solid pins like that. See that? So they give you a whole bag of them when you buy this little kit. It's probably like 40 bucks. But that's a polished stainless steel piece. You drill 4 of the holes. You drill them in there, and then you drive the pins in there, and that is a pretty long pin. You can see the length of that, so that's how deep that goes in there. Drive it in there flush, then the dust cover is going to go on top of that, right there. The dust cover is going to go on top, and then the bearing is going to be on top of there. But if you notice, I had to cut back these fork stops a little bit. They were probably about out to there. That was the original length, so I shaved it basically in half, and then polish the edge, because if you come over here, we'll just go over to the bike. When I first put it on, the problem was we had no fork stops, and with no fork stops, the steering head was turning all the way around. And when I put this on, and I think it's kind of like I said, again, a universal kit, so you got to kind of figure out what you got. When they were twice as long. Literally, our steering was like this far, which, you know, we made one problem the extreme worst to the next problem the extreme worst. So, not that you have to turn these that far in reality, when you're not going to turn it that far on a bike, but you got to have some kind of turning of your handlebars. So I trimmed those back. So now I think that's about all we need as far as turning back and forth. That's going to get us a lot more. Again, it's going to be safe now because you're going to be able to lock it, and they're nice and even now. If you look down them, you can see that they turn left and right fairly even, and they're making a nice solid fork stop in there. So that's where we should be, back and forth. So that's just a quick test fit, and then we're going to come over here. We'll get that bearing on there. We'll get the dust cover on there. Get the dust covered on, which again I replaced new ones, and then this bearing's going to go on here. You don't really need to record too much of this, but that's, you know, everyone knows how to drive a bearing down. I like to use a old 41mm fork tube. Just a simple trick. Just keep one of these laying around. That's a 41mm fork tube. That is about the size of the bearing. You can see I've wailed on it quite a few times. But anyway, so let's see if we can get that to driven down nice and easy. Should be a couple taps on there. Get that started, make sure it's nice and straight. So you can see already a couple taps, it already starts to go down. And super simple, you just put that right on there. And then all the way down. And make sure not to put your fingers in there like I just did. And there you go. So it takes all about 2 seconds, driven down there, the bearing's down there, almost set around. See, we got a little gap there, we can maybe get that down a little more. There we go. So that's it, and then we'll come back here, we'll test fit it again into the bike, make sure we got it the way we want before we grease that thing up. There we go. That's more like it now. Got it. Fork stop that's not going to kill us, and turns down there, sets into there, Works really well. So now we're going to just grease it up. But next video we'll have that thing all squared away, and then eventually we get those fork tubes on it. So we'll just pick it up right there. Okay, so got the triple trees loosely put in there right now. We're putting the fork leg in here, so when we tighten up that top tree, it doesn't flop around. Obviously, you want to keep them lined up. We're going to throw the bars back on here, just put them in place. And why we're doing that is as we tighten that tree up, just going to give us some mechanical advantage. As you can see, I use blue Loctite on things like the riser bolts, not red, not flooded.
I know why I use red. I know why I use red. It's because his name's Ed.
Ed the Red Ed. We should call him from now on.
Red Ed.
Red Ed.
Wait, that's the name of the bike now.
Yeah, Red Ed. That's what we're gonna call this bike from now
This
on.
bike
Red
is
Ed.
Red Ed.
It's Red Ed's bike. I love it. Big Red. Red Ed. So yeah, so we're gonna put these bars on just to give us a little bit of a mechanical advantage when we're holding everything tight. We'll just get it, so it'll just make our lives a lot easier. Again, blue Loctite, because that's the correct one to use. Unlike Red Ed, who like to use red on everything. Just get that cleaned up, get it relatively straight, kind of where we want it. Let's see. Right, kind of hold that right there. Got it? So we're just going to zip these in real quick, just to, we'll probably change it, move it around, but for right now, that's a good start to spot to start out with, just to kind of get it where we can use the bars to our mechanical advantage. And by the way, this little weak Makita is more than enough. I don't think we need to do much more right now. You don't need to lock it down, so it'll go. We're going to run this in between here when we do the final assembly with the forks, but right now it doesn't matter if it flops around. It doesn't matter if the throttle cable's flopping around either, because again, we're probably going to loop it there, but we just did that so we can, Johnny can hold the bars. I can crank down a little bit more on that top nut right there. Get that thing a little tighter. Now, why am I using an adjustable? I'm not an adjustable guy usually, but our crazy little Mayan bolt here, it's too tight, okay. Our crazy little Mayan bolt is not metric and it is not standard. It's like in between. So I think it probably was standard, that little top part right here, but then when they chromed it, it it got a little too thick, so there's literally nothing that's gonna fit it. So that's why we did that right there. I don't normally use adjustables on things, but that's what we got to do. So that looks like it's probably tight. How's it feel flopping back and forth? Tight enough?
It's a little different because you know
it only got one fork in there.
It only has one fork in the tire, but
feel tight enough? You don't want to feel it bind. You want to just feel it turn nice and smooth. You don't want it to be too loose. You don't want it to be too tight. It's just kind of got to go by feel. That's good for now. We'll just tighten these up. We can always readjust it again, but for right now, we're going to this bolt right here again. Cleaned it all off. This was loaded with red Loctite to the point where I couldn't even see the threads on it anymore. So, you know, you're using a lot of red Loctite when you literally can't even see the threads. I mean, it was like a tube of red. Red Ed. That's perfect, Johnny. That was good. I like that. Red Ed's bike. Again, we'll just zip this in here real quick. Just for now, we'll do a final tighten up that after we get the forks out. We're still waiting on these little rubber, what they call wipers or dust boot. On this style fork, there's actually no seal in there, which sounds crazy. There's a rubber boot that over here that acts as the seal. So it acts as a dust boot slash seal right at the end. This is what the bike came with, which is a pretty cool little setup. Here's an O-ring inside there, you can see that. And then it has these little set screws on the sides. And when that bolts on there, it looks all trick, except the problem is when we tighten down those set screws, it pushes so hard on the bushing right there that this thin metal, it actually locked it down, so the forks lost. They would they would go in, but they would like shutter when they would pop out. which really isn't smooth fork action. So again, another dangerous thing that we don't want for the bike. So we're going to get rid of these. I don't know who made these, but they were a pretty chic little item. But we're going to get rid of them and put the original stock style on there. So those are on order. As soon as we get those in, we'll put those on.